Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Connected Living Seminar. My name is Craig Aldridge. I will be moderating the first session of this seminar. I would like to introduce the head of the Connected Living program, Graham Trickey.
So, very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much for coming and resting your feet in our Connected Living Seminar. Connected Living from GSMA is a fairly wide-ranging program from existing M2M connections right the way through to the future of Internet of Things. My message is the Internet of Things for the last couple of years has been, frankly, little more than a buzzword, but I think we're here now. I think it's starting. I think it's for real. And our job in the GSMA is to work with the operator community to make sure that everybody is ready to manage that and provide solutions to allow operators and the rest of this ecosystem to deliver the Internet of Things.
Like an operator, the embedded SIM implementation is in two parts. Technically, we need to guarantee that it's able to support in our network these kind of things. And in the process, we guarantee that we are offered to our customer an end-to-end solution. Means we are able to coordinate with other operators. How is possible to do this translation? For example, there I put an example before, Cameron, regarding with the possibility to moving because we change the agreements, etc., etc., existing in the different, for example, our colleagues in Volvo change the operator because it's necessary to make something different. We suffer this kind of thing, like an example in Brazil. As you know, the regulation in Brazil, our colleagues, they're asking about that, and it's a little bit complex, you know. And we have the possibility to implement in two sides. Technically, our profile support embedded SIM work, and in the process, we guarantee that the end-to-end related with this process is supported like an operator. Basically, is the meaning from the operator side.
Hervé, could you elaborate maybe a little bit on how the SIM Alliance and GSMA and ETSI have collaborated on the specification and how it's sort of moving towards the market?
Yes, so just to mention, because you mentioned my two hats, so I only have one head, but I'm talking about SIM Alliance and not with Gemalto hat. So at SIM Alliance, we collaborate with GSMA on this project. And especially, we are contributing with a very, let's say, very important and key aspect, that is the interoperable profile. And so we are working all together for the SIM industry in order to provide this with our experts to the GSMA. And also collaborating with ETSI, being very transparent with them, saying that we don't want to have some overlap between the different activities. So we are taking care of this part. And then as soon as our specifications are ready, then we share this specification for comments, etc. So it's a very, let's say, a transparent way to collaborate with both, so GSMA and ETSI. But just because we are talking about the interoperable profile, I would like to insist, because I've heard a few questions in the session before, for us, what we call an interoperable profile doesn't mean a single profile for every MNOs. And because for, let's say, mainly for security reasons, what we want is to give the possibility for MNO to highly personalize their profile. So, and I really insist on this, because if you look at the press a few days or a few weeks ago about the NSA who was hacking some, let's say, potentially some SIM vendors and some MNOs, I insist on the fact that it's very important for a car manufacturer or for MNO to protect their customer base with a very personalized and highly secure profile. So the objective of SIM Alliance is definitely to have a specification that allows this, so a very secure and a multiplicity of profile and not a kind of one size fits all, but really to provide very strong security mechanism.
Excellent. So, Daniel, with that in mind, based on what you've just heard and this working on the interoperable profile as well as the enhanced security side of it, is that something that Volvo would be looking for? Does that answer some of the key questions that you were looking for as an end customer of this product?
Definitely. I mean, everything we do is our privacy policy and our security. I mean, Volvo as a brand. I mean, it would really break a brand if we really been hacked or whatever happening. And I mean, it's everything for us. Security. We need to protect the data. We need to protect the vehicle. We need to protect the customer. I mean, we actually have a quite dangerous tool in the hands of our customers. I mean, if somebody comes in and takes over the brakes, it will be a disaster. So we need to have really, really strong security in the solutions.
It's great you've got a technical specification which describes how you download SIM data into an embedded SIM in a vehicle. But it comes down to the relationships between the operator who's providing that service and the OEM manufacturer. And how does that work? What happens if the OEM manufacturer wants to change the operator for any particular reason at the end of contract? Will that actually happen? How will it happen? You know, and it's quite a big deal to do that. And you can imagine that if you're a manufacturer of, I don't know, some kind of toy that happens to be mobile connected, and you've distributed a few million of these around the world, and you want to change operator for all these few million devices, that's a big deal. That's quite a complex thing. So how does that happen without, what happens when you're halfway through and things go wrong? You know, maybe the network isn't able to send the messages in time, so you're in a situation where some of them have transferred and others haven't transferred. So what we've been doing within the GSMA is we've been working with the community, so we're working with operators and M2M providers, and we've come up with a document which we call the business processes document, and it describes a few deployment models, but more importantly than that, it describes some processes on how that should work. And we think this is quite an important thing for the market. It's early days, and I think that document will evolve over time. It will probably increase in scope. But the idea of the document is to give comfort to M2M service providers and device manufacturers and also operators that actually the systems will work if they're ever needed. But you know, in reality, if an operator is doing a good job with, let's say, an automaker, come the end of contract, are they going to change? Probably not, because over that time, and it could be a few years, they've probably got to know them quite well, and they've probably seen that, yes, there have been problems from time to time, but you know what, they were fixed quite well. So I think it's great to have the technology, but we may never need to use it in some cases. And maybe the time for to use this technology is really at the start, when products go into market, go into particular countries, and they just need that subscription for that country to get going. And then after that, it never changes. That's a perfect use for this technology.
And I think it would be. I think we should stress also that this document wasn't written by GSMA as a unilateral action. It was actually a collaborative effort between all of between a very large number of operators. And Cameron was actually a key contributor to that. And I mean, Cameron, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on the document and the reason and why its existence is required and the value that it adds.
Sure. I think as you're dealing with an enterprise customer, they need to understand what all would be involved in changing the subscription on the SIM card. And not only that, but everything else that goes around it. Quite frankly, we've been talking about managing the subscription on a SIM card. I'd say that's the tip of the iceberg as to what really needs to happen. There's a lot that has to happen in what we call the back office. The HLRs, or the HSSs, the home location registers, have to be provisioned. The services have to be provisioned. The connectivity has to be established between data centers. And I'm only scratching the surface. The whole billing arrangement needs to be worked out. The way that you control the SIMs, the way that the customer controls the SIMs has to be worked out, and they have to have access to that, either through a web interface or through API calls from their back office to the carrier's back office. All of that is involved in changing a carrier as well. And so I agree with Gary in that, you know, maybe the biggest use case and the simplest for everybody to wrap their heads around is a bootstrap to start with, that you can buy one SKU of SIM cards, you don't have to worry about buying it for each country. And then you customize it for the country. Because there's so much else that goes around changing a carrier that takes so long. And that's one of the things, I guess, that this document attempts to at least educate the customers on everything that has to happen here and how it would work when you change one carrier to another.
And Daniel, as an end customer, you know, this document, is it something that you've seen as something that was required, I suppose?
Yeah. If you look at it from an OEM perspective, purely, I mean, to be able to get into the embedded SIM, we need some sort of guarantee that it will actually work. And I think this document actually clarifies many of those things. I mean, we're putting a lot of trust into this, because if a deal gone bad in this case, and we need to change something, it will cost us a tremendous amount of money to do that recall. So that is a pretty good insurance document for us that this specification will actually work.
Absolutely. We do have another poll everywhere running, and thank you all for your answers. We'll continue to let it run for now, but we'll just draw reference to it for a minute. You know, the question is, what do you see as the most important next step for GSMA embedded SIM technology? And one of two. One is SIM profile interoperability. Hervé, as with your SIM Alliance hat on, and are you able to talk about profile interoperability and really what that means to basically the entire ecosystem in this instance?
Yeah, I already mentioned this, so meaning that what is important for us is the possibility to highly personalize the profile for security. So this is for the customer, and again, to protect also the rest. I would like to insist on this because it's a very, let's say, dramatic question. And second, it's also important for the SIM vendors, because the SIM Alliance represent the SIM vendors, that we are all pushing in the same direction. So it means that the specification and the recommendation, so the specification from the GSMA, the recommendation on the interoperable profile is adopted by the SIM vendors, but we don't ask them to push the same offer. So it means that there is also still a potential for differentiation. So it means that that's the rule of the competition, and you are not there to limit or to manage the competition between the different members. So they have to play with both. So being respecting the standard, respecting the specification, but having the possibility to have some added, let's say, value services or new functionalities on top of this. So giving the possibility for them to differentiate themselves. And then, depending of what we will see, if it's something that is, let's say, common in the different offer, this could lead to a second version later on, because again, for the security, all these systems have to be, let's say, have to evolve in time, because hackers are better each day. So we have to follow, and this cannot be frozen. So we have to work. So given the possibility to do some evolution as individual vendors, and in the second time for the specification as well.
So I mean, Gary, you're in the fortunate position of being able to see across the ecosystem. As the GSMA, we do spend a lot of time talking to a lot of our members as well as to a lot of OEMs and so on and so forth. With regard, would you be able to share any insight on how the concept of profile interoperability is being received?
Yeah, I mean, so in essence, you have these embedded SIM chips within devices, and they're built by different manufacturers. So the SIM vendors typically supply such things. But wouldn't it be great that you could create a profile using, so an operator would use their favorite SIM vendor to do that, but it would work on any other SIM vendor's embedded SIM. And that's the key to profile interoperability. And it means for the enterprise customer or the device manufacturer that they have access to the whole market then, because they can go to any operator in the world, because they know that that operator can create profiles which are interoperable with the, we call them the EU ICCs, or embedded SIMs. So it's such an important part. You can do business without that, and of course business is being done today already. It doesn't stop things, but it really does open up the market. And at the GSMA, we're really here to accelerate this market. And by accelerate, we're talking in terms of the billions of IoT devices. That's what we really want. And it starts with the automotive sector. And we're really thankful that that has really given us a leg up, we say, to get this going. But we don't want to stop here. And this is the beginning of just a really exciting future for this. And that's why we're really pleased that where the technology's got to so far.
In one word, or just one word, can you say what you think the next big industry adoption will be outside of the automotive area? And I'll start with you, Daniel, because it'll be fun.
Smartphone.
Smartphone.
Sorry.
Where do you see as the next key adoption for the embedded SIM technology?
Probably wearables.
Wearables, Andrés? Utilities.
I was going to say wearables, but since it was already said, I'll say personal watercraft.
Okay.
I was going to say washing machines, but that's just killed me, that.
All right, I'd like to thank all of our panel for a wonderfully entertaining session, and I want to thank you guys, our wonderful audience, for taking part and for your great questions. But let's have a round of applause for the panel, please.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon, especially for the last sessions. I realize this afternoon drags on. It gets to be a little tough to kind of stay strong, but I'm sure we'll all get our second win, because I think we'll be addressing two very important areas in IoT, and especially IoT for service providers, for mobile operators. And for the first panel, we'll be looking at really what I think is probably one of the most, if not the most important vertical, especially for mobile operators. Today, we see it as really where the largest base of revenues are. It's where there is traction, where there's business that's being built, and business with good scale. And you could probably also argue that it's also one of the oldest, or one of the earliest areas of M2M business to arise for the carriers. Before all the hype, before all the media attention that M2M and IoT has been getting, there was a business there already, and it built from this area of the automotive and transport segment. I'll start with Robert. You talked about the sales success of Volvo On Call. 8 out of 10 are using it now. You folks are very encouraged by it. I'm curious to hear what those customers are actually doing with Volvo On Call. How are they interacting with the solution? Any surprises and any things as expected?
Okay, I think first of all, I think the success of a service is how relevant it is for you as a customer. Yes. That is what we have learned. And of course, Sweden is a pretty cold country in any aspect, especially during winter time. So when we launched the app where you could actually contact the car, preheat it on a cold morning whenever everyone else has to put, scrape their cars. The Volvo was, of course, already prepared for you. That's a convenient service to the customer. But you can also open and close the car from a remote location. You can send an address to the car instead of sitting inside the car and trying to get the right address in. So it's all about convenience and relevance to the customer.
Yeah, I think relevance and making it as easy as possible,
Exactly.
right, for them to engage with that. And to that note of ease, when I look at what ATM has done, Carmen, is, for example, the integrated ticketing and sort of and then the fleet management solution that you folks have deployed. What sort of impact did you see in terms of ridership, for example? And I mean, clearly those efforts are to make it easier for the riders to use the system and things like that. Can you kind of give us a sense of the experience of?
Yes, we began the integrated fare management system in 2001, and from then on we've been increasing our demand, our customers accessing to public transport by a percentage of 20%, and I think it wouldn't make sense for any of our citizens in the area to pay for a ticket every time they access a transport, because our system is based on the despenalization of the transfers. You can make a journey of up to 4 stages and you only pay once, and making sense that we have an integrated system without regard of which operator is giving us the service. Relating to the fleet management, we in 2001 also we innovated in putting into motion a complete fleet management system for all the operators who weren't able to have the technology in houses, and we designed a very collaborative system based on a global platform which is managed and ruled by ATM, and every operator rules their management, their system, their fleet, as if the system was of their own, and in this way we only have to up-to-date and update the global platform, and immediately all the operators get adapted and get updated in a seamless way, up-to-date. This is of very much importance regarding this global and comprehensive systems for the public, for the customers, because the customers in the region can be seated in the stops, in the bus stops, and having all the information that of the services that stop at this at the stop, without regard of which operator is being which bus operator will be there for them to guide. So in this sense, from 2004 and mainly in 2009, we started to have an integrated and comprehensive information system regarding the time to wait for the next bus to come. Without no regard of the channel, we deployed in a standard way, in such a way that this system is now being used by not only point of panels in the street, but also any apps, any smart apps that people uses, and with no regard which is giving this information, because we have very much a distributed system, and there's no and only one stakeholder being in charge of it, but all of them, their own services are responsible of the times and the quality of service given to the patient.
So you're opening it up to
yes.
the ecosystem.
Yes, we've been performing in a very collaborative way, just looping in all the stakeholders that have something to say, that have something to sum up with for a global concept of a model of mobility. Yes.
Great. As what I like to say, in terms of the killer feature for the Volvo cars, like I live in Sweden, I live in Stockholm, and I have a Volvo. My neighbor has a Volvo. My other neighbor has a Volvo. There's some guy down the block who has a Volkswagen, but we don't talk to him. But the killer feature really is the heating. But then there's all these other features in terms of they give you some sort of sense of control. And I think we're in the application phase of IoT.
Yes.
I think we'll move past that. But right now, it's really every CEO is saying, I need an app. And I think that, and everyone just wants everything connected to have an app around it. Again, I don't think it's the end state, but it's where we are now, and it's going to drive a lot of business, and it's going to drive a lot of connectivity.
Drive a lot of creativity in terms of what that app is, right?
Yeah.
And then potentially, well, not potentially, but will have tremendous impact on the network, which is why they need, anybody solution developing here needs to work closely with the network providers to make sure that not only does the app work, but also make sure the network stands, right?
I want also to highlight something about the presentation of Carme. The reality is that we used to speak about M2M, it's fleet management, or we're sending information, but no, we have the consumers, we have the people that are going to take the transport, that have mobile phones, I mean, we are in a simple, it's not simple to develop, but it's in a simple way, they are developing the real Internet of Things. I mean, we are merging machines with citizens, with users, with the mobile phones, with the different possibilities to access the information, and we are happy to support them in that way, because at the end the operator has also both faces. We have the connectivity and all the different services on top of the connectivity in M2M, but we have millions of subscribers that are using and want to access to this information. Then, working together, we can move, as I've said, when the people say, oh, what's the difference between IoT and M2M? Well, this is a difference. We're not speaking about sending information. We're speaking about sending information, analyzing, and in this case, the citizens, the end users, can decide different things due to this information and access to other technology, and NFC is one of them. We have creating, or they are creating, with the support, of course, of all of us, a new paradigm that is smart cities, IoT, or whatever you want to say.
I think we had a very broad and consultative process with many operators, and very good kind of consensus in the space. Also, Ericsson and Jasper Wireless as well involved, and the module vendors were a part of that process as well, and very much contributed not only to the communication modules guidelines, but also to all the test documents around it. And the radio policy manager, which originated of AT&T Heritage, you find that in I think around 2,000 devices. And then you have the network friendly mode, which is currently with 2 manufacturers, and that this will grow as well. So they've really kind of come on board, because they really see that making it easy for customers to buy their modules and use them is absolutely critical for us to do what comes next.
Have there been anyone not adapting to what you have said and said they want to go another way?
I'd say everybody has their kind of, the previous gentleman from Volvo was talking about the kind of development timelines of a car. And it's a bit the same when you get, say, in the communication modules territory. You have your release cycles, you have your planning, you have when things are kind of locked down feature-wise. But I'm guessing that we've had dialogues with all of them, and I'm guessing that sooner rather than later they'll all start appearing in the modules to, again, make it easy for all of you.
Work in progress.
Thank you.
We have a great session next. Can I just take one last quick question? I see one right over there, and then we'll have to wrap.
Thanks. Just to build on the previous question, we've heard many examples of positive and great use cases that are likely to come out from the IoT. Stephen also spoke about the value chains becoming increasingly more complex with mobile operators, manufacturers, app developers, and others part of the value chain. But also, Ahel also touched on the regulatory barriers, including, for example, the in some jurisdictions, the restriction on sharing data, customer data, with other partners across borders. How do you see these challenges being overcome as an industry together? Thanks.
Who would like to tackle that first?
I can understand if you want. First of all, of course, it's quite important to face the challenge, because if we don't know that there is a problem, we are not going to solve it. Second thing, sometimes we can try to avoid, and sometimes it's not possible. I mean, it's what it is, and we have to try to provide a better service or adapt it to this regulation, these barriers that sometimes, as I've said, I'm not going to say that it's good or it's bad. It's what it is, and we have to. Then, in this case, what we are doing is having a strict collaboration with all the members of the industry. I mean, we are speaking directly with the regulators to say, or to ask what we can do and what we can do. And we are trying to cooperate with our customers or with our partners, in this case with many telcos, including Telenor, to say how we can work together to have a seamless service, or how we can provide a good service independently that we have this challenge. If we work in parallel lines, it's completely impossible. I mean, the value chain is so complex, the stakeholders, that the unique way is work together to try to provide these services. And I think it works. Something that we have to realize is that this is not an open garden that anybody can do whatever in any place. And understanding that, we have to cooperate to provide the service.
I'd just add that the Connected Living program, if you look at what's coming in some of the future deliverables in terms of the kind of security and also the privacy space and addressing and having a look at what the different regulation is in different places, it's something we're getting to. We get, as you're saying, it actually works at present. We have a system around it, but we're doing a lot more work in this area, because that's what this program is all about, is to really bring down the barriers for the adoption of IoT technology. And so far, it's delivered quite a bit, and we're hope to be here talking more in detail about this as we progress in this space. So.
I think the complexity of IoT, both the markets and the reality of delivering solutions, is prompting a kind of collaboration that maybe we haven't experienced before. And if you try to do something in a vacuum, as Angel was saying, you're bound to fail. It's probably not going to work. We have a great session following up, so unfortunately we have to wrap it up. If we can give a round of applause and appreciation for our panelists. Thank you very much. It was great.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Svetlana Grant. I run the Future IoT Networks project within the Connected Living program. As Graham mentioned earlier, it is one of the 4 core projects in the program. And we're going to tell you a little bit about what we've been working on in this last year. And today, here at the stage, we have got the people who have been involved in this space.
Now, what's tended to happen in the market is that enterprises have said, well, we're doing operational improvement, so we're doing cost improvement. So we know our activities better than anybody else, so we'll do it ourselves. And there's been a lot of in-house activity over the past few years. But we see that beginning to change now, because it's all becoming a little bit more complex, and it's necessary to get changes to these solutions into the marketplace also quite quickly, for a variety of reasons. So we see the opportunity to outsource that increasing over the next few years. And we think that the opportunity for service providers to provide those types of services as a platform is going to increase quite quickly. Now, I have to say that we've said that before, and analyst forecasts are rife with hockey sticks. But we think that there are very good reasons why it's going to be fast to take up this time than it was last time. And that's, as I say, because people have tended to do their own. So when we talk to the service providers in the marketplace who are providing these types of services, we ask them, who are you competing against? And they tend to say in-house. They tend not to say some other third party that has a platform. So that's really what needs to change in the marketplace for it to take off, and that's what we think will start to happen.
Okay. Emmanuel, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm Emmanuel Routier from Orange Business Services. So basically to make an IoT or M2M project a success, we do believe that we need to get 4 major elements or components right. The first one is about generating the data and to get something, which is intelligent, talking to the machines or the sensors. Then you need to get the transmission part, which is more the element where we, mobile operators, are legitimate, but I'll come to that later on about the different technology and challenges we need to address in order to go to the IoT space. Then you have the collect part and analyze of the data. And finally, the display. So in order to make that happening, you have indeed enabling layers. And so the collect and analyze part basically is a domain where we, Orange, think we can help. It's like a transversal element, and we have developed what we call an intelligent application enabler, where I would say 60, 70, or 80% of the elements are common, and then you need to customize the application. I don't say that we are always legitimate to make that happening, but that's something that we make available to our customers in order to make that quicker, because to make those 4 components sticking together and making working, an IoT or M2M project is sometimes pretty complex. And we've seen projects which took, almost years to go to live and to generate, I would say, services, revenue, traffic. So that's why, we think we can help. So yeah, there are indeed, enabling layers, and there are different players in the place. We are not really competing, as you said, because the market is very wide, but it's like a trade-off that companies need to take. Should I do it, in-house, or should I take, someone to help me to be quicker, and then basically to go to market?
Thank you. Hervé, a slightly different perspective for you, perhaps?
Maybe the perspective of the developer. Okay, it seems to me that today the trend is to make it easy for the developers. Okay, so what before, when you were building an IoT application, you would put everything inside it, and now some of what you would put before, some of what you were putting before in the application can be offered to you as a service. So someone else is proposing it, someone else has coded it, someone else offers you the service. It's just getting it. So basically, the goal is to make the development of application quicker and cheaper, ultimately.
Samita?
Yes. Today I see that a lot of silos, and almost every IoT companies are coming up with their own application enablement service and the set of devices, as mentioned before. But the other angle is that what would need to happen is the integration with the existing infrastructure. And I mean with that, we already have the existing infrastructure for IP services, and our cellular systems and all other network devices can speak the same protocols. So I would probably see that the successful story for IoT M2M would be to integrate and be interoperable and standard compliant, so that we could have a set of APIs, an application that can seamlessly can talk to multiple vendors' devices. And for enablement of services, I understand it's creation of service and monitoring and debugging and maintaining that. So, and there are multiple ways of doing that. One is purpose-built service enablement with third-party service providers, and the other one is maybe the operator is providing in-house service, but they are actually working with a third-party vendor.
Thank you. And Pierre?
Yeah, I think what is really key in IoT is the data enablement. So at the end, what we need to process our data are not calls anymore, are not SMS. And for that, we need this in the middle service enablement layer, in which we will have a lot of capabilities that are needed in order to contextualize information that you're getting from the different sensors, for example, in order to get billing information, what kind of billing information I can give for a certain vertical, and also to, for instance, make available the data to the developers, as I mentioned. That is really key. So how many screens can be used in order to display the data I am getting from the sensors. So there is a plethora of different capabilities that have to be put in place in an open market. So many players have to be able to do that by managing. You mentioned already open APIs. I think APIs are really a need, and open and standard. Otherwise, with this amount of different devices that will be connected, we won't be able to make a market and make really all the different devices to connect together in a standard way and really make the market grow and the 15 billion devices to be connected.
Thank you, Pierre. Sven, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. My first thought was I say simply yes to your question.
That would make a very brief panel.
But I would like to add one aspect. I believe that every customer project is a B2B topic currently. This community here is a business-to-business community. And it is an engineering project still, as we discussed already. So it's a design, build, run somehow, as you described, as a single solution. And therefore, the offer being made by an operator, by a component supplier, by an engineering company, by consulting, by a research company, the offer being made to the individual customer will follow a standardized process. Which is exactly how the way how we work, and following this process, the customer sooner or later will recognize that he do not want to develop everything or want to have it developed on our cost. he wants to have it as a standard. That's what we try to develop with the common APIs, and then hopefully Pierre offers the same as Emmanuel, as Sven offers, that the customer can make use of our networks in the same way.
If we look at the traditional machine-to-machine world and this emerging world of IoT, there are probably quite a few differences, but some that have started coming out. First of all, it's the multitude of companies, right, involved. So now you have all of the different ecosystems coming in, and the solutions that they get are not vertically integrated solutions. They can potentially pick and choose bits of those, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do not even know that they have the choice and are not aware of these possibilities. Another one is the emergence of potentially a consumer on the end of the connected device, and absolutely no way to necessarily control these enabling services. So how do we deal with that? And also those other technologies. I think heterogeneous networks, mixed technology networks, have been reality, I think, already in the world of machine-to-machine. But now in IoT, this is it. You go into every single connected home, and you have a variety of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and potentially many new others that weren't necessarily, didn't necessarily need to be managed in any way before, but now you potentially need to. So what needs to happen with these new technologies? I mean, what are the ways to kind of help the end users? I guess make them secure, first of all. Make them, user-friendly, I guess, another question. So there are quite a few angles. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this. Let's talk about the mixed technologies, the latter one, potentially first. Anyone wants to? Okay.
Yeah.
Go, Robin.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Go for it.
So I think that there are a number of things that are needed from a business perspective and from a consumer perspective. I think what Sven said earlier is right, that up to now, all of the solutions that we've been looking at, all the connected device solutions that we've been looking at, have really been orientated towards business processes. So they've been B2B orientated. But now moving towards what everybody is calling IoT, there's much more potentially of a consumer orientation. That doesn't take away from the B2B part. It just means that there's an extra C at the end, perhaps, B2B to C. So there's an extra part of it, and there's an extra bit that needs to be catered for. And we talk about, in the business environment, we've got to make it simple, because the simpler you make it, the easier you make it to do, the more likely it is that people will buy it, the more likely it is that people will use it. Well, that's really the case in the consumer market. You've got to make it really simple, because people just don't want to know the technicalities, even if they are technical by nature. Very few really want to know about it. So that means that when you connect a device to a network, the network needs to know pretty well straight away what kind of device that is, what sort of security it needs, how to configure it, and all that kind of stuff. All that needs to be done pretty well automatically. You don't really want to have to rely on the user to do anything with that, which we do at the moment. So I think that's got to change, and a lot of these services that we're talking about here have an impact on that. So authentication, there's got to be some form of authentication for a user, consumer, or business. There's got to be obviously a method of billing and charging for use of the service, use of the network. We're talking here about extending networks beyond cellular to non-cellular. I think you probably want to talk about that slightly later. But nevertheless, there's a managed environment that needs to incorporate that non-cellular connectivity. We talk about device management. There's updates and things like that for the devices that are out there. All of these have an impact, and we've got to make it a lot simpler. So there's got to be a managed environment, and it's got to be a managed environment that takes into account the need for simplicity to end users.
Okay.
If I may say, indeed, I mean, on the operator perspective, so with regards indeed to the connectivity, to what we should be delivering in order to address the challenges with IoT. So, I mean, today the cellular technology is the one which is the most used, but still, you know, in order to address the IoT evolution, we need to address, you know, certain challenges already on the cellular technologies. Like today, there are hindrances, you know, with regards to a SIM which could be going, you know, everywhere. There are some constraints with regards to roaming regulations, permanent roaming cost. So we need to pass those different hindrances. And so we, as Orange, and by the way, with GMA, the Global M2M Association, we put in place, you know, a SIM, which is basically a SIM which is common to the operators which are part of the association, and which would change according to where basically the device, the IoT device, would be used, like a car, going from, you know, one location where it's built and then to another location where it's going to be mainly used. Meaning that then we can address different type of needs from B2B, but also B2B2C, or even B2C in the car. So, and that's, you know, a demonstration that we have, you know, on the Ericsson booth, on the Gemalto booth, or on GSMA Innovation City. So that's, you know, things that we need to push as mobile operator, or operators in general, push the technology to address those new challenges. There's another one also, which is the limitation of the technology. We all know that indeed cellular technology today, it does consume quite significant power. So if you have small sensors, and we're going to have, you know, in the IoT world, small sensors with, I would say, very short battery, we're not going to be able to put today cellular technology. So what we need to do as mobile operator, as an industry in general, we need to push standards. We need to secure that it's going to be working, you know, and address those kind of elements. And we do believe, you know, as Orange, that the 4G we have today should evolve towards something which would address what we call the low power elements. And that's the evolution, by the way. And that's going to come for tomorrow. But what do we do now and between now and tomorrow? And so as Orange, you know, we already use some low power technology, specifically in certain cases, like for water meters. It was like wave-NIS technology. But we are now announcing that we're going to be launching in May 2015 a lower technology based on Semtech in order to test to what extent, technically speaking and commercially, we would be able to address other use cases than the one we've been addressing so far with cellular technology. And in order to anticipate to that needs, you know, that we should be addressing with 4G, you know, LTM. So those are elements which are important. We think, you know, it's our responsibility to provide the right connectivity for the need of IoT.
No? Let me just pick on one of these topics, and security as a service. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Is again, it's not necessarily a naturally sort of operator provided service, as you know, perceived by this audience, and I think probably fair enough, sort of generally. What are your thoughts on this? If I actually can start with Hervé, because he's been very quiet, but actually he works on security.
Well,
you've got security in your title, or
Hervé,
what are your thoughts on this?
Well, you know, let's start from the beginning. What are we talking about when we deal with security and IoT? On one hand, you have an object, or one or more objects. They communicate. Who do they communicate with? They communicate with application. And the fact of recognizing this in itself is something that is relatively recent. In the good old time, you didn't hear about connectivity between object and application. In the good old time, you had objects, one server, the object was talking to the server, and what was happening after the server? Private business. So that means the security chain was between the object and the server. And it was up to the server to disseminate the data to the application and to secure or not the connectivity. Today, we make things a lot more explicit. Thanks to the evolution and to the emergence of the concept of M2M service platform, today we are considering a holistic security from source to destination. Now, why would we want to outsource security? Okay. I'll start with a basic reason. Outsource security because security is complex. Okay. Corporation outsource their accounting, tax declaration. Why? Because it's complex. And because when they outsource it, they can get a label of quality. Same thing for security. Anybody can acknowledge the fact that security is complex. If you outsource it, you take the headache out, and you may get a label of quality. But I think there is a more fundamental reason, is that, you see, a key problem in security is who manages the credentials. This is a central problem. Because most of the time when we talk about security, we talk about using credentials which exist. How have they been distributed? We don't know. They are there. We use them. The real problem is distribution of the credential. And in this, why did I say that? Sorry. Distribution of the credential. So, traditionally, who distributes the credential? In security, there is a common principle. The guy who gives you the service is also the one who gives you the credential for the service. Okay? So think about telephony. You get a subscription to a telephony service. You get the SIM card that goes with the telephony, and who gives you the SIM card? The telco. Now, along with this business, this model where you have service providers and customers, okay, fixed roles, you see emerging another one, which is more peer-to-peer. Okay, so that means service provider can become customers, customers can become service provider. Even an individual can make the data from his object available to others, and is becoming service provider. So along with this traditional business, you see emerging a peer-to-peer business. And then in the peer-to-peer business, who should manage the credential? Suppose, imagine two corporations wanting to build an application. The object of the first one is talking to the application of the second one for their own interest. Should the first one distribute the credential? The second one? The first one say, okay, I'm okay to do that. But what happens if things go wrong? There is liability behind. I am going to assume the liability? No, my friend, I don't do it. So I might as well find someone who it is the business of, okay, and say, you're responsible. You manage my credential in a neutral way. So that's, we come to the point where we outsource security.
Mm-hmm. 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 And are operators ready to take this role? Are they ready to take it on by themselves? Do they need somebody else to take it on? I mean, I'm as Hervé mentioned, in the situations where operators are service providers, they already do, I'm sure. But in this new world of IoT, what is the game?
So, I mean, maybe if I may start, I mean, there are indeed, different level of security we can take care of. I mean, indeed, on the connectivity side, I mean, we need to take care of the connectivity from the A to Z part, and including, you know, the mobile, the fixed part, and up to the application. But also, when we do then go beyond, you know, the pure connectivity, we can take care of the application or certain pieces, and we need to to provide the security also on those different components. Ultimately, when you do provide the end-to-end services, and we do it, you know, as Orange Business Services in certain cases, like, I mean, the solution for the pacemaker, for example, basically, I mean, we are responsible for the security end-to-end in that case. Okay? So, I mean, are we legitimate to do that? Of course, I mean, we do manage credentials. We have indeed a strong security, and you know, security is like it's not it's a tough call. You know, it's like a day-to-day job. You know, and we have people doing that. And on Orange side, we have also, you know, we are also doing, you know, B2B services, and we have packages on securities basically. We just acquired, you know, a company expert in cyber, I would say, defense. And that's important because that's the day-to-day of our B2B customers. They are getting hacked, and so they need to basically get third party to help them. And we do believe that we can do that because we have the assets, the expertise, people, the financial credibility to do that. Now, I mean, there's no 100% secured solution, of course, but that's something where we can help, indeed, you know, our customers to do that. And in M2M, IoT, that's something that we could be doing. Because indeed those objects need to be identified. They are to be connected to different type of networks, and not only cellular technologies, there are also other technologies that we can master, and where we could also, you know, be part of the game. And that's why, you know, indeed security, I mean, you can also rely on us. But it's going to be work in progress because we're all going to be discovering, you know, what are the open doors in those different domains and what we could begin closing.
I'd like to. If you allow me, I'd like to add something to what you say. You know, nobody can deny the fact that telco have a long-standing tradition in administering secure elements. And in fact, in many applications, secure elements are extremely useful because you see, in IoT application, one fear that comes regularly is the threat of physical attack on devices. So you have your device deployed and someone steals your device, retrieves the credential stored on the device, and clones the device and messes your service up. And secure elements are a very good solution to make that a lot more difficult because the credentials are stored inside the secure element. And telco have a long tradition of remote administration of the secure element, and they can use their tradition to make IoT application a lot more secure.
I cannot say anything more, you know.
Yeah. Said it all.
But I think that's some of your work for this year,
yeah.
to develop the common standard of handling these things under in the community of operators, because we need them all. Mm-hmm. To make a global solution. Yeah. It's just, yes, one or the other can step out, but it's hundreds. It's not only 3 sitting here that have to contribute to this solution.
Yeah, the cost of security is increasing dramatically with IoT because we have the means in order to handle that infrastructure, but the problem is really to respond onto different challenges. Whenever a new sensor comes into the house, are we really securing that the communication between this sensor and the residential gateway, for example, is really secure?
Yes.
I mean, we need a much more effort in terms of understanding the threats and providing the right technology in order to secure this path.
Yeah, exactly. For the devices, the problem, we know that there is end-to-end security that we are trying to solve at the moment, but as you mentioned that when a new device joins, how do you know if that's not a rogue device, if it's not advertising as one of the gateways and directing all this data towards it, or man-in-the-middle attack, draining all the battery power of these little poor devices that are, you know, already starving. So I see some of the module companies are saying, okay, maybe they will come up with some kind of unique device number like MAC addresses, and then you would use that. But then I worry, like, how do you unify that? So company A comes up with number, X. Company B comes up with the same number X, and you cannot, So you cannot know, how to uniquely identify that. So I think in this respect, standards will play a big role, and security needs to be handled at multiple layers. So
that's
very important.
Thank you. It could be a huge topic for discussion, but monetizing these services, security in particular, is that something that we need to think about as well? Well, I'm sure we do, but what are your thoughts on this? Are customers ready to pay for what they expect to be there for when they get the connected device? Robin, any thoughts on this?
Yes, it's not so much paying for what you expect to be there, it's paying for making sure that you continue to get protection in an environment that's continually changing. So we're used to the idea of subscribing to security updates for viruses and so forth in the marketplace. And now we have to think about, for IoT solutions, say a solution is hacked, how do you then make sure that it's not hacked again for the same thing? So there's a remediation type of issue there as well. And then there's the opportunity for mission critical type of activities. We think that there's going to be much more mission critical IoT activities or applications in the future than there has been in the past. So that then leads you to a higher level of security required, and the opportunity perhaps for payments associated with those as well. And then there's sort of setting up things as well. So we think that there are multiple potential revenue streams that can come out of this in the future.
But the question remains, will consumers or end users pay for this security?
Be ready to pay.
So we as operators want them to pay for it, I assume, because we want to get rid of the enormous cost from the suppliers. but the question is, can we show the value? Is the value understood and can be part of
well, first of all, I'm not sure
dedicated offer?
Consumers do pay for security updates now, and will probably do so in the future. So I don't see why
but
not.
only once. The only once.
No, on a subscription basis.
Yeah, but for one device or for the smartphone and the PC in one package.
Right. Yeah.
For the smoke detector, not.
I think that marketplace will start anyway in the B2B market, not in the B2C market. Yeah. And I think that it will then flow over into the B2C market. Yeah.
I think that, I would not be so optimistic. I think that end users tend to think that the provider has to provide the security. Whether they are ready to pay for it, I am not 100% certain. I think that in order to get them to pay or to make revenue, there has to be a lot of creativity deployed in the billing and things like that. Actually, there is one case where you are always ready to pay for security, is when you have a big liability on your head, and you find that when you pay, you push the liability to someone else. Then you are happy to pay.
Hervé, I was going to finish on a positive note that Robin provided.
I was trying.
Now we have a controversial statement at the end. Anyway, I think in that case, will say that, well, there are some ideas about how the services could be monetized, and I think that could be an exciting thing to discuss over drinks. So if I may suggest, I think you've all been great troopers to stay on to the very end of a very long day, on the third day of Congress. I'm sure you're all tired. So the drinks are just outside. In the meantime, please give a round of applause to our panel.
Thank you.